If you were a kid at the first Thanksgiving, a different way of life. In 1620, a group of settlers sailed from England to America to find a better life. They sailed on a ship called the Mayflower and made their home in what would become Plymouth, Massachusetts. At the time, this area was also home to a group of Native Americans known as the Wampanoag. Imagine you were a kid during the first Thanksgiving, also known as a harvest celebration in 1621. Whether you were Native American or an English settler, you would have spent much of your time hunting. You would have spent much of your time growing or hunting for food. To celebrate the year's successful farming, you might have also had to set aside several days to eat, play games, and give thanks for what you had. Turning the page to visit this amazing time in American history, you will see that life today is a lot different than it was in the past. Meet Miles. Miles Alterton is an English settler who lives in the Plymouth colony with his parents. Miles is a friendly boy. He misses life in England where he lived before moving to America a year ago. There he had lots of friends and lived in a big bustling city. He treasures a handmade necklace which he keeps to remember his favorite aunt who died on the trip from England to America. Meet Aquanina. Aquanina is a Native American girl who lives in what is now known as Massachusetts. Aquanina is very spirited. She loves nature, the outdoors. She wishes she could go on hunting trips with her two brothers and father. But in her family, girls are expected to stay behind to cook and grow food. It was a chilly evening in November when Miles sat down for dinner with his parents in their home in Plymouth Colony. "I have an important chore for you tomorrow," said Miles's father. "The colony needs your help." An important chore, Miles wondered. What could it be? A troubled journey. The Mayflower set sail from England on September 6, 1620, with 102 passengers and 2 dogs. The trip to America was not easy. There were many storms and people got seasick. Some even died. The ship was supposed to land at the mouth of the Hudson River in present-day New York, but it landed in Massachusetts instead. The settlers set up Plymouth Colony where they landed. In a nearby village, Aquanina was also eating a meal with her family. Her father talked about the hunt he and her brothers would go on the next day. Aquanina sighed, wishing she could go. The tensions. The Wampanoag and the English settlers had trouble trusting each other. They didn't understand each other's customs and beliefs. A Native American man named Somerset was the first to welcome the English settlers to their land. A few days later, the Wampanoag leader Massasoit signed a peace treaty with the English settlers. For many years, the Wampanoag and the English tried to get along, but in 1662, war broke out between them. Before going to sleep that night, Aquanina stood outside and gave thanks for the day. She wondered about the new people living nearby. Were they dangerous? Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a bow and arrow left outside. She quickly hid them under her dress to keep for herself. Then she slipped inside to sleep. A circular home. Wampanoag families lived in huts called weetus. A weetu was made of woven glass or bark. Inside were woven mats for sleeping and a fire pit for cooking. The Wampanoag were semi-nomadic. In warm weather, they lived in an open area where they could grow crops. In cold weather, they moved to wooded areas to stay warm. A weetu. The next morning, Miles woke up early. His father was already awake. "It's time to gather firewood for the harvest feast," he said. "A feast?" Miles asked excitedly. "Yes. We have been living here for a year, and it's time to celebrate and give thanks for all the food we have grown and eaten. Water and wood. Today, you get your water from the sink. Your house is probably heated with using gas or electricity. If you were in a Wampanoag or English settler, you would have had to collect water from the nearby water source in buckets that were sometimes very heavy. You would also collect a lot of firewood to use to cook your food and stay warm." Aquanina woke to hear her father and brothers leaving for the hunt. Feeling the bow and arrow beneath her blanket, she wondered if she should follow. Watching her mother sleep peacefully, she decided that she would never have such a good chance. She quickly grabbed supplies and snuck off into the woods behind her family. On the hunt. Today you can buy your food at the grocery store, but Native Americans and early European settlers had to grow their own food to go hunting. The Wampanoag used bows and arrows to hunt deer and spears to fish. English settlers used guns to hunt ducks and other animals. They also walked along the shore to collect shellfish. After working hard all morning gathering wood, Miles sat down on a tree stump to rest. Suddenly, he heard a loud snapping sound. He turned to see a girl slip and fall in the woods. He ran to her and offered his hand to help. "Hello," he said. Aquanina shook her head. She did not speak English. "Miles," he said, pointing to his chest. "Aquanina," the girl said with a smile. Sharing new languages. The settlers and the Wampanoag spoke different languages. However, the Wampanoag knew English. A Wampanoag man named Squanto served as an interpreter between the settlers and the Wampanoag chief. Many other Wampanoag continued to learn to speak English. However, most settlers did not learn the Wampanoag language. In the distance, Aquina's brothers and father watched Miles and Aquina. Was this boy trying to hurt her? Just then, they all heard shots being fired. Aquanina was frightened by the noise. She grabbed her bow and arrow and ran deeper into the woods to her family. Miles sighed. He thought he had made a new friend, but now she was gone. He touched his necklace. He touched his aunt's necklace in his pocket. It always made him feel better. Dressing up. The English settlers on the Wampanoag had to make their own clothes by hand. If you were Wampanoag, then you would wear very little. Boys wore a loincloth. Sometimes they also wore leggings and a shirt. Girls wore similar clothes. Sometimes they added a skirt. Both wore moccasins on their feet. If you were a settler, you would wear layers of clothing. Girls wore a petticoat and boys wore stockings and pants. Later that evening, Aquanina's father scolded her for following along. Then he explained the loud noises they had heard. It was simply the English firing guns as they hunted. They were planning a feast and had invited Aquanina's family to join. Learning, a different kind of school. Learning was very different for the Wampanoag and English settlers. If you were a Wampanoag, most of your learning was done outside. You would learn how to hunt, cook, and make useful items. If you were English, your parents might have taught you how to read and write. Religion would be the main subject you studied. The next day, the feast began. Everyone gave thanks, played games, and ate delicious food. Miles was surprised to see that a group of people dressed like Aquanina were also there. "We invited our neighbors," Miles's father told them. It was then he saw Aquanina and her family. He ran over to her to say hi. A modern Thanksgiving. When we celebrate Thanksgiving today, we watch parades and football on television. It is a tradition to eat turkey and pumpkin pie. But during this first Thanksgiving, people were more likely to eat corn, duck, mussels, and deer meat. And while we celebrate Thanksgiving for just one day, the first feast lasted for 3 days straight. Aquanina looked at Miles with suspicion. Miles wondered how he could show her that he wanted to be friends. He pulled his aunt's necklace from his pocket and offered it to Aquanina. Aquanina put it on and smiled proudly. Later on, she took Miles's hand to show him a traditional game. They were both excited to have a new friend. This is just a beautiful intro about the first Thanksgiving. If you enjoyed this, ask your parents for more. Until next time, bye.